Right, okay, guys. So the other day I had a friend of mine message me and he said to me, Lee, why is it that modern films are so rubbish? Like, why are they so bad? And I said to him at the time, it's funny you say that. I'm actually working on a video as we speak. I said, I'm just putting some notes down on a topic I want to talk about. And it just so happens that what you've just mentioned comes up in that topic. So, yeah, I thought we'd address it as a whole. Now, as you can see by the title, yeah, Hollywood is a mess. It is essentially fucked. Well, at least at this point it is anyway. And I just thought I'd go through a few of the reasons why I think that is. So, number one, they reboot films that were great first time round. Now, this is a very big problem. And I absolutely think this is the reason why a lot of these films fail. I mean, if you look at a lot of the reboots we've had, for example, the RoboCop reboot. Now, when someone's talking about RoboCop, are they talking about the reboot or are they talking about the 1987 classic? I can tell you now, they're talking about the 1987 classic. No one is talking about the reboot. And there's many other examples. You know, when people talk about, like, for example, they talk about Jurassic Park, they don't really talk about Jurassic World, do they? You know, some of the youngsters maybe think Jurassic World's good, but in most cases, youngsters that have seen Jurassic Park agree that Jurassic Park is a better film. So this is definitely a problem. If you're going to reboot something that failed first time round. Good example, the film Spawn. Now, I love Spawn. I love the comics, I love the character, and I have a little bit of nostalgia for the film when it first came out. However, I would not try and make out that that's a good film, because it isn't. Very early CGI, which is these days piss poor and really stands out. Script writing that wasn't brilliant, terrible acting too. You know, this is a film that's begging for a reboot, and I don't think anyone would complain about that because it needs redoing. It's a terrible film. On the flip side of that, you got the film The Crow, one of my favourite films of all time, and they're redoing it. Big mistake. It was a great film the first time round. In fact, the main star died doing it. I think it's, number one, very disrespectful to redo this in the first place, and number two, no one's going to be happy about it. Everybody loves the original. So why do it? And this is the problem. Stop rebooting films that were good the first time round. Do something new. Right. My second point, which I also think is a problem. If not a reboot, then it's a terrible sequel or a prequel. Now, you know what I'm going to use as an example here, guys. Star Wars sequel trilogy. You know, just stop doing this. You know, if you're going to do something new. Don't, you know, why couldn't they have set it a couple hundred years into the future and then no one would have cared what they did with the characters, you know? But no, you had to carry it on from the original trilogy and completely screw it up. And if you want to go into the TV series, a good example of what they've got planned at the moment, The Acolyte. Terrible series. It's a terrible series. And in fact, they're doing a lot of damage to what came, I'll say what came before, although technically now in the timeline, it's what came after, isn't it? They're doing terrible damage to the six films that George Lucas did. You know, like what they're doing to the Jedi in that series is absolutely terrible. They're ruining what the Jedi was. In fact, they're now making them the bad guys. It's just not good. It's just not good storytelling. It's not good writing. You know, why has everything got to be a sequel or a reboot? Come up with something new. In fact, I'm actually at a point now where I'm done with Star Wars. Do something new now. You know, Indiana Jones is another good example. You know, that last film, who wanted that? No one asked for it. I certainly didn't, and I didn't enjoy it. So please, just do something new. Stop doing this. Number three, they change the story and then they revel in the fact that they've upset the fans. Yes. Good example, going back to, in fact, I won't go to Star Wars because that's almost my go-to. Star Trek, there's a good example. They're changing things about Star Trek. Discovery has changed a lot of things. And then when fans complain about it, they almost enjoy the fact that they're pissing the fans off. This is not a good way to run your business. If you want people to keep watching your stuff, It's very important that you don't upset the people that are paying for it, the fans. What are you doing? And then you'll end up with these terms like subverting expectations. Well, that's just a lazy way of saying, I don't know how to write properly. Or another way of saying that they're too arrogant to actually read, watch, get involved with the original content that came before. They're so arrogant that they can think they can come in, do whatever they like, and that will fit into the universe. And it's wrong. We're seeing good examples of this time and time again, where directors are coming in and they've got no idea about what came before. Like Ruin Johnson, for example, and I am now going to use Star Wars as an example. He came in, tried making out he was a massive fan. It's clear he was, and he didn't have a clue. But he was arrogant enough to think that he could just do what he liked and everyone would be happy with that. And that's not how it works. So, yes, this is a major problem. You shouldn't be going out of your way to upset the fans and then come across like you're enjoying it afterwards. The message comes across before the story. Yes, it seems almost when they do these films, it's like, oh, we must get this message in about this particular topic, and then we'll write the story around it. And how do we know this? Because the stories are terrible. They're terrible and they never make any sense. Back in the day, and I'm going to use a cartoon here, for example, He-Man. Every time they did an episode, it had a great story, and then at the end, you had a little message about what certain characters had learnt in that episode. For example, it'd be, today, Orko learned not to trust strangers, and you shouldn't do too, kids. Good example right there. But they would do this in a way where they did the story first, and then they came up with that afterwards. It was clear they did, or it's just that they had very good writers. But I would say it was clear they did the story first, and then added the message on afterwards. And that's how good programs, films, stories are done. And this seems to be something they've lost these days. They just don't seem to be able to do it. Here's another good example. Number 5. I can't count today. Men can't be men and women can't be women. Yes, absolutely. It seems that in this day and age, if a man acts like a man, then it's toxic masculinity. And if a woman acts like a nurturing person, which is how women naturally are, well, then they're weak. They must be a strong female character. Even though we've got actors coming out saying that they're the most boring characters to play, Hollywood seems to keep pushing, we want strong female representation. Yes, this is a terrible way to write stories. Men have a natural instinct to protect, to fight, to stand up for what they believe in. Women have a natural instinct to be nurturing, to take care of people, to be empathetic towards people. Why are Hollywood trying to change these things? These are things that have gone on for hundreds, thousands of years. Why is it all of a sudden Hollywood are arrogant enough to think they can change it? And don't get me wrong, yes, there are exceptions, but that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing nowadays is weak, stupid, pathetic men and strong, almost butch man-looking women, strong female characters. And it's like they've completely flipped it. And it's not a realistic look at the real world, is it? Like I say, don't get me wrong, there are exceptions. But if you was to believe Hollywood, it would suggest that it's the other way around all the time, because that's all we're seeing. So as a result, people are not enjoying that either. Directors have to insert themselves into the film, like their ideologies, their beliefs. They have to insert all of that into the film. And we are seeing this time and time again. Again, I'm going to use a recent example, The Acolyte. Leslie Headland, she openly admitted that she'd put her ideologies into the series. And you can see it, I'm not going to go into the reasons why. If you know Leslie Headland, if you know The Acolyte, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's written all over it. She has absolutely put her sexual orientation above all else in that particular series, and it's splashed all over it. And as a result, it's created a boring series, something that's really got no story to it, because where do you go with it? This is the other thing, isn't it? If you're not going to come up with original thought-provoking ideas and you're just going to insert your own ideology into it, well then at that point you're taking out all creativity, aren't you? There's nothing you can insert into that that's going to make that interesting. And as a result, it really isn't. It's terrible. You know, like, I mean, I haven't even watched it in its entirety because it's so bad. It's really, really bad. So I can't actually sit there and watch it in its entirety. It's so bad, I have to turn it off. So, yeah, good example right there. And like I put it out, you know, we watch these things to escape the real world. You know, the real world's a shitty place. We watch these things to escape all of that, to get away from it. Why are we being constantly reminded of how shit the world is in these programs, in these films? We don't want to see this, you know? So again, this is another reason why this stuff's so bad. And then the last thing of all, and this one's the most important one of them all, and I thought I'd add this right at the end. The minute the fans don't like what Hollywood's doing, well, then they go on the attack, don't they? You know, they revel in the fact, like I've already said, that they're upsetting the fans by what they're doing. And then when the fans voice their opinion, and let's be honest, we have a good way of doing that these days on social media. I say YouTube, but YouTube algorithm is a little unkind to people like me that want to speak out against the narrative. But let's just say the minute you do, they attack you. And they do. They call you ists and they call you phobes. And it's got nothing to do with that. You know, we've not got an issue with this. What we got an issue is terrible storytelling, terrible writing, terrible films, terrible programs. We want to see something good. That's the problem. Now, this is funny, right? If you go back to the 90s, I would say that people were more tolerant of each other than ever, right? This thing that they now call diversity was already going on. It was already happening during the 90s. Everybody tolerated everybody. We all got along. If you come down to my work, there's every walk of life going. And I mean as in like different races, different sexual orientations, and everybody, for the most part, gets on. This is the point. This stuff that Hollywood's trying to spin, it's frankly not true. People get on a lot more than they're making out. So I can tell you now, back then, people didn't have an issue. They weren't, don't get me wrong, there's always a small group of these people. Of course there are. But as a whole, most people were not an ist, were not a phobe. And we haven't been since. And as time goes on, obviously you have kids and you impart the same things onto them. So they're not going to be like that either. So why is it Hollywood's trying to tell us that we are? We're not. It's just their way of attacking us when we say what they're doing is trash. So, you know, and it's a fact. This is what we're seeing all of the time. So as a result, these are all the reasons, as far as I can see it, as to why Hollywood is such a mess, why it's so fucked. Like, you know, until these issues are sorted, Hollywood's never going to do well out of this. Like right now, they're hemorrhaging money. Most of the big companies are hemorrhaging money. And it's because they don't seem to be able to get their heads out their asses. They don't seem to understand that in order for people to enjoy it and pay for what you've got, you need to actually be doing something that they want to watch, so that they don't feel like they're being preached or called something or something that's just a terrible recreation of something before, or something that's purely designed just to separate the fans. Either way you look at it, if you want people to buy what you've got, to pay for it, to enjoy it and to stop moaning about it, do something good, guys. It's not rocket science. Do something good. Yeah, stop attacking the people that pay your bills. Simple as. And I'm going to end it there, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and until next time, take care, stay safe. Nerdy Geezer out.